In TF2, it is fun to shoot people. This is as expected, as this is a first-person shooter, but what makes it exactly so fun to use your gun to shoot enemy gamers? Most people would say that the sound and animations are what make guns feel good to fire in any FPS game, but that's a superficial element that doesn't mean too much. Sure, it's important to some degree, but smoke and mirrors at the end of the day. TF2's gunplay, however, is specifically crafted so that every element complements each other and enhances the other parts of the gameplay. Nearly every part of it is essential and creates an unmatched FPS experience. To find out why TF2's gameplay is the best in any FPS, let's first look at the most striking features that set it apart from a lot of FPS games. One of the first things that comes to mind when thinking of TF2's gunplay is the lack of movement and accuracy in aiming down sights. In most modern FPS games, you are less accurate while hip-firing and are forced to aim down the iron sight to be accurate. This is usually a byproduct of the trend that Call of Duty set many years ago. However, TF2 was released before the COD craze began. So does that mean that TF2 doesn't have ADS because it's outdated? Quite the opposite, rather it's ahead of its time. A lack of ADS allows battles to be more dynamic and movement-oriented, as seen in other games like Quake, Halo, and Overwatch. Not only that, but it gives the person who was attacked a chance to come back from a fight, as games with ADS heavily favor the person who shot first due to a requirement to go into an animation before you can accurately fire. TF2 can also get away with this feature like many others I will mention later, as it is explicitly cartoony and unrealistic, and thus doesn't need to adhere to realistic mechanics that would detriment the game. Another unrealistic part of TF2 that benefits the gameplay is the time to kill. In most FPS games, the time to kill is very low. Why are they like this? Because real guns nearly instantly kill you. Another reason again, modern market expectations and trends. Back when FPS games were starting out, a higher time to kill was a standard outside of milsims. However, Call of Duty became massive. Because of this, a lot of games wanted to be like Call of Duty. Once again, however, the high time to kill is not a symptom of outdated game design. In a lot of low time to kill games, it heavily favors reflexes over other avenues of skill. There's not much time to think about movement when the fights end as soon as they start. In TF2 and other games of higher times to kill, movement is much more important. You not only can more reliably evade an enemy, but also juke them out using your strafe well. But TF2 not only has this aspect of moving during fights, but also manages to sidestep a big problem a lot of high time to kill games have. The bullet sponge syndrome. One issue I've had with playing both Halo and Overwatch is sometimes it feels like you do no damage at all. In Halo, it can feel like you've put too many bullets in the enemy yet they still live. Granted, part of this problem is due to the game not having that good feedback of how much damage you've done, but still a huge blow to the overall experience. Overwatch does indicate damage, but the overabundance of healing really hurts the flow of battle, as you can reduce someone to 4 health and only for it to be all for nothing. Another problem people have with high TTK games is how they don't have enough individual expression. Halo 3 is commonly criticized by people who favor Halo 2 or Combat Evolved for being too team-oriented, due to it not having the 3-shot magnet or double shot which reduces the time to kill in the first 2 games, and Overwatch explicitly tries to chain you to the team as much as possible. So how does TF2 sidestep those 2 usual downsides? The first way it does it is in the type of primary weapons it puts in your hands. TF2's weapons are almost all single fire, with the automatic weapons being higher power weapons like the minigun or flamethrower. And with most single fire guns, these weapons pack a punch. You usually need only 2 shots to kill an enemy if you hit your shots dead on. The movement is also fair enough so you can dodge shots, but you can't just strafe spam to victory. This makes missing a shot feel like the enemy outplayed you rather than you just abuse the fact you can't really predict their movement because the strafe is instant. With these 2 factors, a player can easily outplay multiple enemies at once instead of being guaranteed to die in a 1v2 scenario. Lazy Purple goes into much more detail about this part in his own video on why TF2 is genius, but the point remains that the single fire philosophy of TF2 manages to sidestep 2 conical plays out high TTK games. However, this isn't the only way TF2 makes guns have impact and retain the appeal of individual expression. Damage fall-off is also another major factor in this equation. Damage fall-off is a feature most FPS games have, where the further away you are from an enemy, the less damage you do. However, most of the time it's a secondary balancing factor, with bullet spread or recoil being the main way the game balances damage over distance. In TF2, however, damage fall-off is the main range balancing factor. Almost every weapon suffers from damage fall-off to varying degrees, with 2 main exceptions: arcing projectiles and the sniper rifles. Arcing projectiles like the grenade launchers, flare guns, and huntsmen all have limited range by how far they can physically travel, where the grenade launchers having a timer which limits how far it can be lobbed. The sniper, on the other hand, is a sniper rifle. The heavy use of damage buff encourages aggressive play while still rewarding the player's mechanics and makes weapons able to be even stronger when used up close. Once again, the guns may kill slower, but they still feel just as powerful. One more major benefit of damage fall is that you can't easily be 2v1 by someone taking pot shots from a distance, as both enemies must engage to deal significant damage. This further strengthens the appeal of TF2 as a team game that can be enjoyed by simply lone wolfing. Don't get me wrong, team coordination can be a fun thing, plenty of people enjoy it, but a lot of times it can be frustrating to lose just because of one bad teammate. In Team Fortress 2, if you have a single bad teammate, most of the time it doesn't matter at all. Not only are the matches 12v12, but if you're good enough, you can easily take down multiple opponents at once. One final benefit is focus on close range combat is how you design maps. You no longer need to add cover everywhere so people aren't lasered down. All you need is to make sure that sniper isn't too broken and you're good. This allows more diverse map sites to be made, and overall increases the quality of gameplay all around. However, TF2's weapons are not only great because of the emphasis on movement, single fire focus, and damage fall. Another reason TF2's weaponry is amazing is because they aren't just used to shoot people. Many of TF2's main weapons have other utilities besides the metric of doing more damage in certain situations. Let's take the best example of this, the flamethrower. It's an automatic weapon that's easy to aim but has low DPS and some afterburn. So it's basically only a noob weapon, right? That's where you're wrong, because doing damage isn't the only thing it's useful for. Spies can be tricky to track while invisible, but one puff from the flames will reveal a cloaked spy, making him easy pickings. Additionally, afterburn reduces the power of the miniguns, healing, and the vaccinator shields, but the real power of the flamethrower comes at its alternative fire, the air blast. With one right click, you can extinguish burning teammates, push enemies back, and reflect almost every projectile in the game. The most common secondary utility weapons give is movement, with rocket launchers, sticky bomb launchers, certain flare guns, and the force of nature all providing forms of knockback based movement. This both opens up a new avenue of movement to the game while still limiting their health and ammo, most of the time that is. There are more forms of weapon utility, like the short circuit being able to delete projectiles and the winger giving you higher jumps, but that's all for now on this subject. Another way TF2's weapon design is great is because of their uniqueness. In a lot of modern FPS games, you keep getting typical versions of assault rifles, SMGs, snipers, and the whole bunch with no variation or real distinctions. Even the sci-fi settings a lot of these games adopt. With this, you're limited to only the real variations in weapon functionality being damage, range, fire rate, stuff like that. In TF2, however, weapon functionality can vary a lot. Sure, you have the basic archetypes of weapons, but different damage type leads to different strengths and weaknesses. Bullet weapons have instant travel time, but they often have weapon spread and aren't going to do well against sentries. Projectiles, however, are more consistent at range if you can lead them properly. Explosives are slower but can absolutely clean a sentry nest. And we haven't even gone to some specific weapons that are unique. The sticky bomb launcher fires remote mines that can be used to make traps, launch yourself across the map, or it can be just used for mid-range combat if you're a spammer. The Baker's Bazooka is a rocket launcher that needs to be manually reloaded in advance, but can fire 3 rockets at once or be overloaded to do some crazy rocket jumps. The Crusader's Crossbow is a projectile weapon that fires a bolt with reverse damage fall that heals teammates and damages enemies. The list goes on and on, with these weapons making TF2 stand out from every other game. Another thing that makes TF2 stand out is the universal knockback of every weapon. Nearly every weapon in TF2 is knocked back to varying degrees of power. It's not noticeable for most of the weapons during a typical on-ground engagement, but when an enemy is airborne, it's a lot easier to notice that knockback exists on hit-scan weapons. With explosives, knockback is an integral part of properly using the weapon. This knockback serves a few purposes to further enhance the gunplay. One of these is making the guns feel more powerful. It's not enough to be disruptive to the movement, otherwise TF2 players would have no excuse to complain about stun mechanics in Overwatch. However, it is noticeable on the most powerful weapons like the rocket launcher and minigun. This knockback also serves a second purpose to make sure that mobility isn't too powerful, as trying to rocket jump over to an enemy medic while heavy is around is generally an ill-advised idea. Projectiles are hard to airshot with, but it's more rewarding because not only did you deal a lot of damage to them, but their course is completely thrown off. Knockback isn't always a bad thing for the guy who got shot, though. It's also possible to use knockback for an enemy attack to evade them. Once again, movement during combat is further emphasized by knockback. It's a small mechanic, but every mechanic and detail matters in the game. One of these details that also matter a lot is TF2's unorthodox approach to ammo and reloading, at least by modern standards. In a lot of retro-style shooters, there is no reloading, and the only limit to how much you can fire is your carried ammo. These games also tend to emphasize map movement and ammo management, causing the need for map pickups. In more grounded shooters, there is a typical reloading system that usually isn't intended to be cancelled. Magazines are also limited, with the only way to regain ammo is with the guns from people who are already dead. TF2's is split between both systems, with reloading being part of the game, but rather than an action you must commit to, you can cancel it by simply firing your weapon. TF2 also has a lot of ammo pickups on the map, with it being a major factor in gameplay. These two factors further emphasize good ammo management while majorly slowing down the flow of combat. The map pickups also encourage map movement, as you will run out of ammo or die a lot if you neglect map pickups. Players also drop ammo when they die, further encouraging active play. The other type of map pickup is also integral for the TF2's combat experience, as it determines the speed of how long you live. Health. TF2's health system is very pickup focused, which once again encourages going around the map and not staying in one place. It's a good way to recover after a fight. It rewards map knowledge as an additional skill. However, there are more ways to heal. Medic is the most obvious example, but dispensers and lunchbox aims are another common avenue of healing. These healing methods encourage team play, but are not extreme enough to get to the point where the enemy can instantly heal after you nearly kill them, unless they're a light class that got crossbow sniped by your medic or used a large health pack on the map. The healing system of TF2 overall encourages good team play and map knowledge, while still not being overwhelming to the point where it would take a billion years to kill someone. At this point, I've proved beyond reasonable doubt that TF2's gunplay is incredibly well designed, with design details that were planned at every step of the way. But there are some final details that need to be addressed before we're done. One of these minor details is the weapon switch speed. In a lot of other FPS games, the weapon switch speed isn't that fast, meaning pulling out your secondary is usually reserved to when you're low on ammo. While in TF2, the weapon speed is significantly faster, meaning weapons can combo into each other. This isn't something accidental either. Certain weapons are practically made to be combo weapons. The reserve shooter is meant to be used after popping someone into the air for rocket, and the flare gun is great when used in tandem with a puff from the flamethrower. There are also multiple eyes that balance themselves with slower deploy and holster speeds, such as the Degreaser and Panic Attack, switching in faster, while the Downman swords aren't as good for quick close-range self-defense. That's everything gameplay related I have to say, but let's also cover one final thing that's a bit superficial, but a lot of people will care about anyway. Weapon animations and sounds are one of those noticeable parts of any FPS weapons, and thus are a big focus. In this department, I'd say TF2 does a pretty good job. They mostly function well and sell the weapon's power. Granted, there are some animations that are broken, but hopefully when the summer update drops, it'll be fixed. However, what's better about TF2's weapon animations aren't really about the weapons, but rather how the enemy reacts to getting shot and killed by one. Shoot someone in the head with a shotgun and they'll go flying back, and shoot someone in the leg area and they'll trip forward. Explosives either cause gibs or the enemy to be sent flying, creating some hilarious ragdolls. Headshotting someone with a sniper or the ambassador, or backstabbing them sometimes plays a unique animation, and both scenarios can pin corpses to a wall. All these give the weapons a factor of feeling powerful, which is important when making weapons in an FPS game. It's incredible how much thought was put into making the gunplay in TF2 as good as possible, but then again, a lot of that was also put into a lot of parts of TF2's gameplay. Really goes to show how the game has managed the last 16 years. However, there's one feature that's aged poorly, and you probably know what I'm already gonna say.
Captured.
Yep, still fair and balanced. Thanks for watching, tell me what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.